It is a copy of the Taycan. You learn how the car behaves when it's slippery. This is a whole day. Who buys American cars? They don't have any competitive electric cars at all.
Hi, Jack. 今天我们要带一位挪威的汽车博主，跟他聊聊中国的电车在他眼里是什么样子。Chris. Is this Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Jack.
Hi,
nice to meet you.
Wow,
you look good.
This is like scary. On the bike with a kid, like, I want to go past you. God damn it.
So you've been driving this car for how long? Like half a day?
No, half an hour.
So how do you feel on the highway?
I mean, it's actually pretty good. The suspension is actually not too bad, but the steering is a little bit video gamey, very PlayStation, right?
Okay. So is there like the best handling? What's the best one?
In an EV?
Yeah.
Well, it has to be Porsche Taycan is definitely. Mercedes EQE 53 AMG is really good, and also the facelifted Audi e-tron GT with the active suspension. Also, the Taycan with active suspension is crazy.
What car do you drive on a daily basis?
Porsche Taycan Cross-Turismo. I've had it for 3.5 years. There's no better car to drive than the Porsche Taycan.
Have you tried like Neo? I don't know.
Yeah, Neo's not even comparable in my opinion when it comes to... No, it's not. Because we have a YouTuber in Norway who drove the... I don't know, the EL7 when it came out. It's called the ES7 in Europe, I think. And he said, oh, it's like a German car. And when I had one on loan, I went with my friend to his house because he has an Audi Q8, and we drove them back to back.
So you see the difference?
You can't. I mean, Chinese cars, interiors, you do interiors great, but like ride and handling, the Germans are still better than anybody in the world.
Do you think it has anything to do with, the road condition?
No, we were talking about this, and I think it's just a difference in culture, right? I've grown up with my dad, right? Who drove a car, right? And then his dad. And then his dad again, right? Yeah. The tastes has been passed down to generations. In China, you like, your screens, you like your tech. In Europe, we like buttons. We hate voice command. We have a lot of European brands that are owned by, for example, Volvo is owned by Geely Group, right? Yeah. They've let the Swedish do what they do. Now with the new brands like Zeekr and Polestar, they're taking platforms that were developed here and then bringing them to China, right? And it's made and tuned for the Chinese market and the Chinese driver, right? These cars, like for example, the Polestar 4, has had very negative press in Europe because the systems that are made for China, the European buyer doesn't want, right? I think the same with like handling and driving, that's important for Europeans. It may not be important for the Chinese market, right? So it's just different. Yes. And so in Norway, like 97% adoption rate for electric cars, right? New car sales, 97% are fully electric. So,
but it's cool.
Yeah, sure.
Does it have any bad influence on it?
No, we've been doing this, we started our EV adoption 10, 12 years ago. Maybe 10 years ago when you had cars with small batteries, slow charging, no preconditioning, but now it's not a problem. Every car does preconditioning, and every car has, good range, and we have chargers everywhere in Norway. I mean, when the first Chinese cars came to Norway 4 or 5 years ago, like the Neos and the Hongshis, they had slow charging. Now they moved the game, Chinese cars with 300, 400 kilowatt peak charging speed.
Well, there's a saying that if we reach the level 5
autonomous driving,
yes, and there would be minimal accident happening in the city because every car was following the program. Do you think that works? Maybe
we'll get there. Sure, it's probably letting the cars do the driving is probably the most safe, but I don't want the world where I can't. I love driving. Yeah, right.
I can see that.
So in Norway, we have crazy country and mountain roads. It's really fun to drive on, and other places in Europe. If you go to Germany, they have, I think 60% of the Autobahn, the motorway there, is without a speed limit. Yeah. Right? So you can go as fast as you want.
Because people are saying that European countries are, a lot smaller than China, so they don't have that kind of anxiety with the mile range.
Well, we travel a lot, right? I mean, it's normal to travel to other countries. I could drive to Italy, right? Or I could drive to Spain. It's 2,000 kilometers, right? That's the normal thing to drive on vacation to Spain or to Italy or to France.
Okay, so from that angle, I don't think there's so much difference.
No.
In terms of,
I think we probably travel. Well, I don't know how much you guys travel here, but I know a lot of people like maybe you live in Chongqing, but maybe you're from
Beijing?
a different right,
yeah,
and then you go home a few times a year. So I think in Europe we travel a lot with electric cars, and I've driven to Germany, I've driven to Italy, which is more than 2,000 kilometers. I've driven a lot in Europe.
Is charging a problem if you were to travel far?
Depends on what country. Like in Norway, infrastructure is great, and in Germany, it's very good now. It's just getting better and better for every year. But Spain, not very good.
Really?
Portugal was good again, but again, like it's depends on the country.
Yeah, the requirement to get a license. What's it like?
So it's very comprehensive. I think first you have to do, before you even start training, you go to a class. So it's like a few hours because you learn like basic traffic rules, and then you can start practice driving. And there are mandatory, you have to have, I don't know if it's maybe 20 or 30 hours with an instructor just training you. And then you have to have nighttime driving. And then you do something called country road driving, where you learn how you pass on a 2-lane road. And then you have also something called ice driving. You learn how the car behaves when it's slippery. This is a whole day. So it's like a course, and then there are things moving, and then you have to like try to move out of the way.
I think that's a really important part, because to control your car, to know the limits.
Yeah, and also know what happens beyond the limits, right? What happens when I lose grip when it's rainy or snowy or icy, right? Because I don't think, unless you are an enthusiast, you don't know. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, when it's got slippery and just drift.
And also brake tests and all of that to see how the car behaves. And then you do the written test, and then you do the driving test. And the driving test is 1 hour on a public road, right? The written test in Norway is usually so hard that most people, they fail the first time. And also the driving test is like, I think 50% fail the first time also. It's really strict. So I think in total, like the price for all of this is like, maybe like 20 or 25,000 RMB.
20?
Yes.
1,000?
Yes. So that's why you take it seriously.
So do you think it's hard to drive in such, especially it's a rush hour on Friday?
No, I don't think that. This is not difficult at all, because I'm always like, I'm always aware of what's happening around me. I took my driving lessons 22 years ago. I still remember my instructors like, look there, look there, look there, just all the time. Like there was a bus coming, and I'm asking you, this first time driving here, but I just knew from, the language. Because we also learn, part of driving training is like the language of your car. How do you place the car in the lane to show not only with your indicators, but to show with the language of your car to other drivers where you're going and what your plan is. There are other cities like Barcelona. Outside of Barcelona is so complicated to drive. There are cities in Europe that are just, they were built 1,000 years ago, right before we had cars.
They didn't modify it any?
No, we don't do that in Europe. Car is always second or third.
Any suggestions for new drivers?
No, so of course, like depending on where you live, you're gonna have your culture, right? The culture to drive. I'm just been driving here for a day, but I'm now understanding that most times we go to the left, there's always 2 lanes, right? Always try to be calm, right? Always try to take it easy. It's always better to drive slower than faster. And if you're ever insecure, especially in a big city like this, stop the car on the side, right? Because some people they continue, right?
Yeah.
Just relax. And of course, look around, right? Not only in front of the car, but look far ahead. And the faster you're going, the further ahead.
Yes.
And also mirrors, your blind spot, your mirrors, this. So then when you're going to make a decision, you have all the information.
How do you know how far is it from you to the wall? Like when you're parking, or when you just wrestle with your, the other drivers. How do you, get that sense?
Well, modern cars do have cameras, right?
Yes.
Which is easy. And mirrors are a nice thing because you can see how far you're to the wall. So I think it's just training. You get to know your car, and again, just take your time, right?
Yes.
I'm like, okay, let me just, and maybe go out of your car, right? Stop if you have time. Oh, it looked close, but I have like a meter, right?
So basically, you have to practice. You have to really take time into it. Nice Ultra, right?
Yeah. Nice Ultra.
So do you want that in your country? What's your projection and your anticipation about if one of these super performance cars come into Norway? How would they do?
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, it is a copy of the Taycan, but it's a really cool car. If they can come with it at a competitive price. In Norway, if you're going to get the Taycan with the Turbo GT, the top spec, is probably, what's that, like 2 million RMB? How much is the Xiaomi here?
500,000.
If it's 1 million RMB in Norway, it's still half the price.
Yes.
Right? So I would probably consider that could be a car that is very popular.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
How was your day, Chris?
It's great. It's great.
We haven't spent a whole day.
It feels like a whole day. In a good way.
Okay, that was good. That was good. Thank you for your time and
thank you. Thank you for your time.
Or your perspectives, and that means a lot to me. Really.
And I'm honest, right? I'm going to tell you what you're good at, and I'm going to tell you what you're bad at. That's why people come to my channel. And the point is, when I'm loud, when I complain, people hear it, and then they improve.
Yes.
If it's the car manufacturer, whatever.
跟汽车爱好者聊车，总是感觉时间过得飞快。而借着中国车在国际上越来越强的势头，我们也有了越来越多的机会能听到海外的声音，在未知中了解，在沟通中进步，这就是一种快乐。